Once upon a time, or 2 years ago to be exact, I drew this, my very first digital artwork. I made videos where I fixed drawings I made 10 years ago as a kid, and drawings that go back to my time as a teenager. And so to finalize the series of fixing things, I thought why not do something more recent and show you guys and myself how much can change in the course of 2 years. So how about we start by asking a question. What is wrong with this artwork? It's the year 2022. I sit down and I'm excited to use my first brand new digital tablet. I picked up the pencil and quickly realized I have no idea what I'm doing. Composition? Didn't exist. Color? Well, I thought shading with black was a good idea. And lastly, my best friend, the airbrush. That turned out to be my worst enemy because it made everything look so blurry that it made me think that I had visual impairment. So let's come back to 2024 and actually go over it step by step, starting with the composition. Something that hasn't changed in those 2 years is that I take myself as a reference for almost all the drawings I make. I figured this drawing wasn't showing enough of her body or pose to really convey her broken state of mind, so I kept that in the back of my head when shooting the reference. I would also like to change the format to vertical just to see if it fits better, because I want her to be in the foreground rather than messing it up with a big slab of blue. Now the only downside of using myself as a reference is that I always have to adjust my female characters, because otherwise they just look too manly. And I'm the type of person I like to keep it subtle. I want my female characters to look female without giving them the stereotypical double D sized chest, massive curves and stick arms. And so as you can see, I start very simple and add more and more details as I go. Now, not gonna lie, this turned out a lot better than I expected. Usually I spend 7 eons scribbling around like a degenerate. I guess I'm improving on that aspect as well. To have an easier time coloring this piece, I like to do another layer with clean line art, but won't use it in the final result because I figured black line art don't fit well when you have a semi-realistic style, at least for me. Now we come to the colors. If you look at the majority of my pieces, you'll notice that I really like to work with a lot of white, since I find it very aesthetic and it just fits the vibe or emotional state of my characters. If I remember correctly, this drawing was supposed to play out in a forest, and on top of that it was raining and somehow she was illuminated as if a whole team of photographers was behind the camera. I definitely will use warmer colors on her and give a cooler, simpler background. Whether it's going to be the colors and the values right away, I'm not sure, but I can always adjust that in the end. What I'm 100% certain of is that I want the light to come from the top right corner and mainly illuminate her face. For rendering, I use one specific brush, which is a softer brush with a hard edge that is good at mixing, especially if you lower the opacity. I usually go over everything very roughly, putting in the shadows and then the highlights, and I kind of struggled with the values on this one, specifically on the skin, so I quickly got myself a reference and tried to progress as much as possible. It's currently 8 PM, my eyes are burning and I feel like I haven't slept for 7 years, but I think this is going pretty good. I just wanted to take a small peek and look at the two drawings in comparison, and I have to say, boy, I'm shocked. The pose and the emotion just comes off so much better, and usually I never fully polish or illustrate a drawing for my videos, but with this one, I kind of feel different. Bro, sitting under this light, I feel like I'm being fried alive, god damn it. Alright, it's day 2, and today we're gonna mainly focus on working on...
Jimmy, have you already cleaned the toilet?
Hell no.
What are you doing? I remember this! When you fixing some old art again, you idealist little Though I do have to say, that looks really good. Wait, does that mean you're also gonna fix this one? You remember it?
Brother, we agreed we will never talk about this artwork again.
Come on, man, it'll be fun.
Brother, please.
Brother, I can even take over. Let's do it.
No!
I think I'm turning out. Did you just say no to me?
Have you seen it?
Jimmy, calm down.
No, we will call this in Germany wirtschaftlicher Totalschaden.
What the
I will
fuck?
not go back to that garbage. I won't fix it. I do not care about this drawing.
Not gonna lie, man, you had a little bit too much character development, don't you think?
What the f are you even talking about?
You used to be so obedient, and now you're just retaliating like a 14-year-old kid going through puberty. You want me to get you a tampon?
You almost made me cry last time. Told you not to tell the story in front of the camera, but you still did.
Who gives a f?
No one. I do. And for the first time, I will do what I want. For once, I want to take my time and make one good drawing. And you will not stop me. I've had enough of your bullshit. Let me tell you this, from now on, it is either...
I don't know what you guys did to Jimmy, but he seems very upset.
Anyways,
Not gonna lie, I feel like vomiting.
bro! Alright, so the infamous drawing that I was talking about is this one. I don't really have to go into detail with this one. Basically, everything I did wrong with the first drawing, I did even worse in the second one. So my plan with this drawing is I'm not going to render it like I'm aiming to do with the first one, but I want to bring it to the point where I'm currently at with my first drawing. Just like with the first drawing, I used myself as a reference. And I remember it sucked, which is why I'll turn to Pinterest this time. I want to keep the core pose of this drawing, so I'll try to find a reference that matches it as much as possible. Now design wise, to up the challenge a little further, I want to stick to what I tried to make in that drawing. So instead of a shirt like in the reference, I'll give her a hoodie and change the hair up a little bit. Also, I'd love if somebody could explain my obsession with blue at that time.
Why did everything have to be blue, bruh?
Remember how I mentioned that I usually spend 7 hours scribbling around until I get something right? Well, this is exactly what happened, which is why it's time for some quick line art to clean this mess up. Also, if there's one hairstyle I absolutely hate to draw, it's gotta be goddamn bangs. Though I still remember it clear as day, the dumbest shit I've ever done in my life is take a real photo, put it in the background and blur it.
Jimmy, you can take over again. I don't want to do this anymore.
I finished the drawing to a certain extent, and just to quickly compare these two, this Abomination took me a full 2 days, while this took me a mere 2 hours. So besides all the technical aspects, I also improved in speed, which is amazing because I would consider myself a very slow artist, which is nothing bad. Now let's quickly hop back to our first artwork. Of course now it's all rendering from this point out, but I would still like to explain how I get from something like this to something like this. As you can see, my whips look like they need surgery, and generally speaking there's just a lot that happens in between. My first goal is to apply the values as correct as possible, in the sense of, does this form look believable if this light source is given? Besides that, I'll try to fix any mistakes that I made in the anatomy. After that, I work more on colors, make them more saturated in certain parts, and simply adjust them if they feel off. And for the majority of this part, I use the mixing brush that I mentioned earlier. Moving on to the hair, I use a very textured and hard edge brush, just so I'm able to give form very quickly. Then, just like with the skin, I give the shadows and the highlights, and that's pretty much it. The last step of rendering would be the line art, which I like to place in darker areas and vary the thickness just for more dynamic. Then to finalize things, to give more depth, I like to add manga hatching, simply because I enjoy the texture of it.
And because I like manga.
Lastly, if I feel something is off, the first thing I look at is the composition, because that's what usually goes wrong in my drawings. Just a quick example, this Levi fan art in my latest drawing that I made, I switch up the composition and instantly they become more aesthetically pleasing to look at. And finally, when everything is said and done, I play around with the background and try to see what fits. And voila, we finally fixed this artwork. Before the end, I just wanted to quickly give you guys 2 tips. Number 1 being, I always recommend making backup files. It happened to me exactly once that my drawing corrupted, and ever since I got PTSD. So unless you want to gamble with life's RNG and want to risk making all your progress go poof, always make a backup file. And number 2 is kind of a motivational tip to keep your morals high as well. I'd copy paste your progress once in a while just to see or check up how much better your artwork got after just 1 or 2 hours. Just to give you an example on the drawing I did in this video, here you can see how it looked earlier compared to a couple hours later. And yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna go play some Baldur's Gate 3. Truly, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
Wow. Okay, das reicht. Ich habe keinen Bock mehr, mir einen Schuh in die Fresse zu werfen.